58 degrees now, and now it's nice and hot and humid. But anyway, it's a typical southern weather, but been a little warmer than it typically is. But no, briefly about myself, I have been uh, employed in the travel industry since 1994 in one form or fashion, and I've been professionally putting together tours for companies like Wells Gray and other Canadian companies and domestic tour operators all around the country since early 2002, when I basically got into the package travel industry to consumers. So anyway, I service a lot of areas of the Midwestern United States and Southeastern United States, a lot of the major destinations, entertainment-based destinations. Anyway, it's a fun job, put together trips for folks like you that get to travel. So especially when you're coming all the way from Canada. So
yeah, we are so excited. Mark, I think I accidentally turned off your video camera.
oh,
I'm so sorry. You want to pop
that's
that back
okay.
on?
My son disappeared. I wasn't sure what happened. So there we go.
So for our audience, just if you can, make sure to keep yourself muted. We're going to keep your cameras off this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to jump right into this PowerPoint presentation about Nashville and Memphis. And at the end, what we can do is open it up for some questions. If you have more questions about the tour, hopefully myself or Mark can answer those. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay. All right. So hopefully everyone can see that. Mark, can you let me know? Can you see the first slide there?
It's loading. Yes, there you go. First one's up.
Excellent. All right. So we're going to get started. So we are going to Nashville and Memphis. This is a tour we ran in 2019. It was a huge success. We're thrilled to be able to go back, going at a wonderful time of year at the end of September. So September 25th, 9 days. We actually should rotate the name because we're going to Memphis first and then to Nashville. But it's going to be just a fabulous trip. We do have some early booking discounts still available. For $125, and this tour will be coming up for final payment coming in August 10th. So if you are on the fence, hopefully we can answer any questions today as we go through. So our first day, we are flying down on, we're driving down on a Sunday at the end of September 25th. We're going to drive down to Seattle, and we'll pick you up in all the home cities throughout the interior of BC. And then in Seattle, we will overnight stay at the Embassy Suites, beautiful hotel right near the Seattle airport. So nice and convenient. Then our next day, which is Monday on September 26th, we will be flying on Delta Airlines to Memphis. And our coach will meet us right there at the airport, and we're going to go straight and check into this absolutely gorgeous property that you see in the pictures. It's 3 nights here at the guest house at Graceland. This is one of Memphis's top-rated hotels. It's an extraordinary resort right in the heart of Elvis Presley's Graceland, and just steps away from the Graceland mansion. And maybe Mark can, have you stayed here, Mark, or been through this property?
I have several times, and this hotel was built in, I believe it opened up in fall of 2018, or it might have even been early winter of 2019. I can't remember exactly, but this is one of the newest hotels in the whole Memphis region. And not only is it one of the newer properties, it's a 4-star property. It's just an immaculate property the way they designed this thing, and the customer service is phenomenal. You have a wonderful full breakfast buffet that's included each morning. That's part of the breakfast package there at the hotel. Not that you have a whole lot of free time on your trip, but in the evenings in one of the lounges they have entertainment. Some kind of a local blues or older rock band that's playing some kind of music in there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So that may even be something that some of you folks are able to partake of, once you return to your hotels of an evening. So, but it is, and again, it's right across the street from the museums and from the new visitor center complex at Graceland. And I can elaborate more on that because that was the old complex was torn down back about 2000. Again, almost about the same time this hotel opened up, and they opened up a whole new visitor center complex for Graceland, and to be able to go over to the mansion for the tour of the Graceland mansion as well, which we'll get into here in the next slide. So.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Mark. So we're going to sort of have a relaxing evening, enjoy that fabulous property, the Southern hospitality, and all the luxurious amenities that it offers. Then the next day on Tuesday, we're going to do a morning devoted to a tour around Memphis, which is, of course, known as the birthplace of rock and roll. One of the highlights is going to be we're going to Overton Park, and this is on the left, this picture here. And this is where Elvis Presley did his first paid performance in 1954. Then we have a fabulous lunch included at the renowned Peabody Hotel. And as you can see from the photos, there are some ducks inside the hotel. So this is a really fun piece of history. The hotel opened in 1869. It is listed on the National Registry for Historic Places, and it is world famous for these 5 resident ducks. And they march through the lobby at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. So it's pretty neat. Have you seen the ducks marching in the hotel?
Oh yes, I've seen them in the morning when they come down out of the elevator, and I've seen them in the evening when they go back up on the elevator to what they call the duck condo or the duck apartment on top of the Peabody Hotel. And it's yes, the ducks are treated and live very well during their lives at the Peabody Hotel. So it's quite interesting to see, and it is a beautiful hotel to be able to experience. Even if you're just going in there for a few minutes just to hang out in the lobby, and like I said, you guys will also have, after you see the ducks come down from their duck condo that morning, have after that you have some time to mill around the hotel and the lobby and some of the other shops and stores around downtown Memphis before having lunch at what's called the Capriccio Grill. They're inside the lobby of the Peabody Hotel. So
yeah, it looks like it just has so much history there and lots of charm and elegance. So I think it's going to be a really lovely place to have lunch. All right. Then in the afternoon, we are going to visit the Rock and Roll Soul Museum. And then we also have some free time to stroll along the famous Beale Street. This is one of the most iconic streets in America. 3 blocks of nightclubs, restaurants, shops, right down in the heart of downtown Memphis. Of course, all the music happens here: blues, jazz, rock and roll, R&B, and gospel. So I'm sure this is just going to be a really fun afternoon checking out this street. Anything to add, Mark, on walking down Beale Street?
Like back up to that morning too, Kerrie. I just want to hit on some of the highlights that we always include on the tours in Memphis before you actually get to the Peabody Hotel. A couple of the highlights that people like to see. Not only that Memphis is well known for, but just it's very intriguing for people to see some of these places that might not have ever been to Memphis before. During that sightseeing tour, aside from seeing like where Elvis Presley performed his first performance, another stop that we have our guides make is at the St. Jude's Pavilion. If you've ever heard of the St. Jude's Hospital and Research Center, which is the children's hospital. They have the pavilion there, Danny Thomas, who was the founder. They have the chapel there. They have a very unique gift shop that you can wander through. They have where him and his wife are buried back behind their memorial. It's just a very serene, unique place to stop and see kind of right off to the side of downtown Memphis. And like I said, it's always a stop that's worth doing. Something else that a lot of people are interested in is one of the stops. Now, we don't take time to go into the museum because it would add a couple of hours to it, but we go by what's called the Lorraine Hotel or the Lorraine Motel, which is where Martin Luther King was assassinated. And that's where the Civil Liberties Museum is at as well. Anyway, make a stop there for people to be able to walk up, and you're told the history of that by the guide and everything. Anyway, there are just a couple more unique stops that are encompassed in that sightseeing tour when we do those in Memphis. So now going to later in that day, the Sun Studio, that is no, I'm sorry. Jumped too far. Got the wrong day. Rock and Soul Museum. The Rock and Soul Museum is just a phenomenal collection of artifacts that have been donated or acquired by the museum and their curators and board of advisors of stuff that they've been able to collect and archive. And again, a lot of stuff's been donated to them from various, rock groups from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even up to modern day, and have all that stuff very showcased. And the first part of that tour that we like to do typically is part of a guided tour before you're that way you can get some of the highlights of the things in that museum before you then have time on your own to mill around and explore and look at other things on your own that are of interest to you in this large museum that's right there in the heart of downtown, which is actually right there at the beginning of Beale Street, which is where you'll be for your dinner that night. And yes, Beale Street is that iconic street where there's all kinds of, there's jazz clubs and bars and restaurants and rock and roll, restaurants with entertainment and live bands and stuff going on all the time in downtown Memphis on Beale Street. And it's a very safe, patrolled area because it is such a popular area of Memphis. I always like to reiterate that with Memphis because a lot of people, worry about Memphis because it doesn't have the best reputation in terms of crime and stuff, but the downtown area and the Beale Street are very safe areas for people to be at. And the coach will be right there at the beginning, at the front end of Beale Street to pick you up and drop you off when you arrive there, and then when you go back to your hotel that evening. But the restaurant where you'll be having dinner that evening, the King's Palace Cafe, is a very one of the older restaurants there on Beale Street. And you're kind of put down in a little private area where they have entertainment in there. So you'll have your own little exclusive bluegrass or jazz or little rock and roll entertainer there for you that evening. And most of them will do requests for songs or music that you may want to hear, something that was one of your favorites, which is always kind of fun. And I've been there with several groups myself over the years where, with several of the groups in there dancing, themselves, with spouses or friends or whatever it may be. So anyway, it's a fun experience. And then they say you'll have your time as well, before you have your dinner that evening to explore some of the shops and music stores and maybe even some of the other bars or lounges down there with entertainment before you actually meet for your dinner at King's Palace.
Fun. Oh, that sounds so much fun. Yeah. And then I think we have entertainment as well at BB King's that evening.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said King's
Is that
Palace.
the same? Okay.
Yeah. There's two restaurants, but BB King's is the one that, yes, I believe one of the two restaurants, either of them have the entertainment. They will have private entertainment there. Yes. Sorry about that. And I'll have to clarify on that. But yes, either way, either restaurant, you will have private entertainment in the areas that you're seated in. So.
Yeah. I mean, it looks great. Like, Southern food and then just all that music to sort of get your feet tapping and your soul jiving and listen to all those music legends. I love that you can request songs. That would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be a great day. Now, of course, we haven't left Graceland. We're still staying at the guest house at Graceland. So the fourth day here is Wednesday, September 28th, and we are going to, of course, go and visit the guest house, which is adjacent to Graceland, which has the mansion, the museums, the galleries. We're going to spend the morning immersing ourselves in the whole Elvis experience, which I think is just going to be fantastic. The mansion looks beautiful, and you can wander around the gardens. You can go inside. I don't know too much else. Mark, you've been inside and can learn all about
how it works, and like I said, the whole new visitor center complex, with the exception of the actual Graceland mansion itself, which is what you're looking at on the screen, had been around since virtually the late 70s or early 80s, and they were it was unique, but they were a bunch of like little, almost like strip mall type stores that had been converted into some of the museums and archives areas of Elvis Presley's life and his collection of all his things. And in about 2016, behind where all that was at, the corporation that owns all that had bought that land, and they started developing another area where everything was kind of put under one roof. And then after everything was moved, they actually demolished the old little strip mall type things that were right along the street. Now the Graceland Visitor Center complex actually sits about 2 blocks off of the road, which it's quieter, and it's also just a whole beautiful new area, and all the original areas that were torn down were all converted into green space. And anyway, once you get there, like I said, basically you get tickets, and that ticket will have things that get you to see some of the different exhibits there, as well as the airplanes. They still have both of the airplanes that Elvis owned that you can go into and take pictures of, which is kind of unique, knowing how he flew all over the world for his concerts and all the movies that he recorded. And you actually take a shuttle, and it's they give everybody like an iPad, and you're put on this shuttle with headphones, and they take you across the street to the actual mansion itself. And then you have kind of your own little self-guided tour of the mansion itself, and of the gardens, and of the memorial where he's buried, and along with his parents and all that. Anyway, it's a wonderful experience, and honestly, once you're there, it's a good 4 to 5 hours that you want to be spending there to see all the stuff that is there between the actual mansion and the other exhibits of Elvis Presley's life.
Wow. Yeah, on the inside, I just have one more photo here, just of some of his obviously costumes and artifacts and all the personal mementos from the family and awards. Yeah. My dad loved Elvis. I grew up listening to Elvis. Yeah.
It's an impressive exhibit, and even what you're seeing is a small sampling of actually what Elvis accomplished during his short life, for the 20 years or so that he actually did concerts and movies. So like I said, it's an incredibly impressive amount, but it doesn't even begin to touch on everything that Elvis did during his life. So
love it. All right, now this is Sun Studio. So Mark mentioned this earlier. So this is what we're doing in the afternoon. So we spend the whole morning at Graceland, and then in the afternoon we tour Sun Studio. And this is the recording studio. It was opened by rock and roll pioneer Sam Phillips in 1950, and became, I think, very well known because of its early role with helping Elvis become so famous and sort of spearheading his career. But so many other famous artists also recorded here: Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Roy Orbison, just to name a few. So I think this is going to be a pretty neat afternoon here.
Yeah, and that's just to elaborate on that. It's a guided tour of the whole facility of Sun Studios. And yes, it is a very small facility, but the history that is there is so incredible to know. Not only the entertainers, but the quality and quantity both of the entertainers and the music that came out of that studio in the 50s and 60s. And you get to see that. They actually take you down into the original studio that still exists. And for the most part, during the days that things closed off specifically for tours, whether they're public or private group tours like Wells Gray's. And then in the evening, that studio was still used and rented out at a very high premium for other entertainers and musicians to still record, to get part of that older sound that came out of that studio that you can't get in modern studios. And you hear all about that during the course of your tour. So anyway, it's a firsthand experience, especially to be able to stand in that same room by the same microphone that Elvis sang in, and dozens of other big name entertainers, back during the 50s and 60s sang and performed, and they got their careers started.
Oh, that sounds really neat. That's fascinating that they can still record there and that artists want to record there, and that how technology has changed so much. So to go back and use some of that old equipment, that's pretty neat. Oh, okay. And then dinner tonight, we go to a famous barbecue restaurant. Can't go to Memphis without eating barbecue. And we go to Marlowe's restaurant, and they are known for their award-winning barbecue pork ribs. They have beef brisket, barbecued shrimp. They even make barbecued spaghetti that they're famous for, and they have been in business for 45 years. So I think this is just going to be a super delicious dinner here. Have you eaten here, Mark?
Yes, I have. And just, as I know, Memphis is known for its barbecue. So don't think you're going to be barbecued to death at all the restaurants at your restaurant on Beale Street and also at Marlowe's. You will have choices that are non-barbecue oriented, because I know that doesn't always appeal to everyone, especially a couple nights in a row. But if you like barbecue like I do, I would love to eat barbecue several nights a week, but you'll have the options and choices to select other things aside from barbecue. But yes, the places, Marlowe's is very well known for its barbecue, for its ribs, and you'll have your choice to partake of that if you want to, or if you want a more traditional type meal as well while you're there.
Nice. And then now, so we're heading on to day number 5. We're going to be leaving Memphis, and we're going to head east across Tennessee and make our way to Nashville. But we are going to stop en route at Johnny Cash's Storytellers Museum. And I know this is the place where Johnny Cash used to escape from his public life. And now they've sort of turned it into a must stop for anyone interested in knowing more about Johnny Cash and just sort of, the man behind all of this country music. So I think lots of history inside this museum. I know, Mark, you were telling me on the phone a couple of weeks ago just how awesome this stop is.
Yeah, people don't realize that it's actually off the beaten path enough to where I still consider it one of the hidden gems of Tennessee that a lot of people don't know about. Because it was just acquired about 4 or 5 years ago by a gentleman from Florida. The grounds and the Storytellers Museum that you see in the picture was actually what Johnny bought and used as a recording studio when he did not want to record in Nashville. This is about 45 minutes to an hour to the west of Nashville. So it's in a very secluded area, a very small little town called Bon Aqua, Tennessee. But anyway, just about a mile or so up the road from where this recording is, what was this Storytellers Museum, that was the recording studio that they kind of turned into a museum. And they've actually got some remodeling that they're doing. They're taking some of the stuff out of this museum right now, and they're moving this museum actually up to the home and the farm where Johnny Cash lived with, I think it was like a 70 or 80 acre farm. I can't remember exactly the size of it, but anyway, it was just a little like small 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom farmhouse that he got, but he called it his, not only his hideaway farm, but it was his escape from the universe, is what he called it, where he could basically just go out and be in nature and not have all the day-to-day stuff that he dealt with his agents and his managements and in the studios working on music, where he could just go and live his life and be the common man that he was, even from where he grew up at in Arkansas. Anyway, you'll get to tour this home out there where he lived, which still has a ton of of memorabilia that was there from when he owned it before he passed away. And not only do they have, and not to this either, but you will actually have an included lunch once you get out there this day that they'll have catered in. So you have a lunch out there at this at Johnny Cash's farm and the Hideaway, and you'll get the tour of the home. You will also have some private entertainment, which is a gentleman I've worked with for many years, and he's been contracted by the owner of this farm now, Johnny Cash's old farm, to perform specifically for, and again, a lot of people don't know this, so I love to be able to incorporate this thing into Wells Gray Tours and other tour groups. And even a few years ago, when Wells Gray had ran a couple trips in 2019 to Memphis and Nashville, this didn't exist, and it was not to the scale that it is now. But anyway, Johnny Cash's nephew, his name is Mark Allen Cash. He will be going through a whole singing, storytelling, life of, Johnny Cash and growing up with a family. And you will hear stories about what it was like growing up in the Cash family. And some of it is the stuff you won't hear or read anywhere else. It's the real deal coming from, people who lived with Johnny and his family and some of the trials and tribulations and stuff that a lot of the Cash and Carter family went through. Anyway, it's a phenomenal experience, not to, I don't want to elaborate too much more on this, but I've been out there with groups myself, and had a group last year from California. I can't remember if I told you this or not, Kerrie. And this was it was a similar type tour, except they had only done 2 nights in Memphis, and they were doing 4 nights in Nashville. And anyway, that was our first stop. So we were 2.5 days into the tour, basically, and this. There was about 6 people from the group, and there was about 35 people in this tour. And I had about half a dozen people come up to me as we were leaving the Johnny Cash's Hideaway farm after the experience that we'd had there. And they're like, we could go back home now and not expect anything else on this tour. This was such a unique experience. So, like I said, it's a very unique and amazing stop and inclusion on this tour for Wells Gray. So.
Wow. Okay, so I need to talk to Roland and get myself booked on this tour. That just sounds awesome. I love all the sort of behind the scenes and just that whole experience. It's just something we don't get to experience every day, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Mark Allen, the nephew that comes out, he is such a even though he's part of the Cash family, he's got his own stories and struggles that he's went through, but he's just a common guy, and he will come out and talk to people and hang out with you and talk to you as long as you want to talk. I mean, it's just a very unique, down-to-earth experience, to be able to be part of.
Yeah, that's so neat that there's some family still involved and carrying on this legend. That's really cool. Yes. But we're not going to go home because it's still going to be, my screen just went away, I think. Hold on there, friends. All right. Can you see that, Mark? We're at
yes.
the...
Yeah,
okay,
back.
Great.
Uh-huh.
Not sure what happened there. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so we are into Nashville now. We are going to check in for 4 nights at this fabulous hotel, the Opryland Hotel. And this hotel has been... I think open, well, actually, I don't know when it opened, but I know that it has over 3,000 rooms. It's an incredible building. It has 3 large tree-filled atriums, which you can see one of them here in the photograph. There's a multitude of restaurants, lounges, indoor gardens, water features. It's just an absolutely gorgeous property. So we spend 4 nights here. We have rooms booked in the atrium view room, so all the rooms looking out onto one of these gorgeous atriums. So we're going to be quite spoiled for 4 nights staying here. Anything to add about this property?
Yeah, I could tell you about this hotel property, and I love the history of it and how it started as a smaller couple hundred hotel room property and grew to over 3,000 room hotel property with the convention center. But the gist of it is it's a phenomenal 4-star hotel as well that you'll be staying in. And yes, you have the what's called the atrium view rooms, which are the rooms that face inside as you're looking right now at this picture in towards. And this is just one area. I don't know exactly what area you will be in, but you will be looking at the inside of the hotel and the gardens and some little shops and stores and walkways going through the hotel. And of course, it's got a glass roof and where it allows light in, and so those trees and the flowers and all the shrubbery can grow. But anyway, it's just a phenomenal hotel. And if you've never been there, don't, if you can imagine, some of the large hotels that you have in big cities, or Las Vegas, for instance, that are 3,000 room hotels that are, 35, 40 stories tall or more. Imagine that same hotel. This hotel is only 6 stories tall. So that's why you've got such a large, vast area and all these indoor, garden areas to be able to be part of and to enjoy while you're at the hotel, at this opulent hotel for 4 nights. Like I said, they have different restaurants and lounges and a couple places where they have entertainment during the evenings. And again, you've got not that you've got a whole lot of time, because you've got a very pretty busy schedule with a lot of very good inclusions, for the next 3 full days that you'll be in Nashville. So, but it is in terms of, there's only one opulent hotel that's like the one in Nashville, Tennessee, with all the gardens and the size and all the options that people have of things to do. So it's again, it's following Will's great pattern of high quality tours. There's no place else really to stay except for the Opulent Hotel in Nashville for Will's Gray tour.
Yeah, it looks fabulous. It's like a resort within a resort almost.
It is.
And that's very interesting. It was only 6 stories. I hadn't read that, but now I can kind of sort of tell by the photograph that it's not a tall building, and with the ceiling being glass, it's very bright and welcoming. Yeah.
It's a very unique experience to go through if anybody's never been before. And if you have been, you understand what I'm saying. And chances are, if you've been there before, there was even some areas of it that you didn't get to explore before when you were there. So.
Yeah, as Mark mentioned, we are pretty busy. So the next day on Friday, we're going to do a locally guided sightseeing tour around Nashville. There's lots of highlights. A couple of them are, we go down Music Row, the Ryman Auditorium, which is you see on the right here, this picture. I was just doing a little bit of research about it, and it is a huge auditorium, seats almost 2,400 people. So it's a massive concert hall, and it was nicknamed the Mother Church of Country Music. And what I read was Captain Thomas Ryman, he was a riverboat captain. He owned a few saloons in Nashville, and he was so inspired by one of the preachers by the church that he decided to sort of open up this auditorium. And all of the pews that you see are from the original church, made out of oak from 1892. And it's still held as a full concert hall today, where lots of performers perform. Anything else, Mark, on that?
Just hit some of the highlights. Yeah, the Ryman Auditorium is a phenomenal place to be able to see, because that was it wasn't the first home of the Grand Ole Opry as well. It was actually like the 4th home or the 4th place where the Grand Ole Opry performed. But up until the new Opryland Opry House Theater was built in 1973, the Ryman was the longest running home up to that point, and we just surpassed that a couple of years ago. The Grand Ole Opry performed in the Ryman Auditorium from like 1944 until like 1973, so it was almost 40 years. And of course, in the 70s, that the new Opry House Theater was built, which is over near the Opryland Hotel, kind of towards the other end of Nashville, and that was a larger for it because the demand had gotten so great. And with it only being a 2,400 seat venue, yes, that sounds like a lot, but they actually built a 4,400 seat theater in 1973 to accommodate the demand for the Grand Ole Opry. And then, of course, over time, the Grand Ole Opry was originally just a Saturday night performance. Then they expanded that in the 90s, actually, to a Friday night and a Saturday night performance. Then around 2005, the early 2000s, they actually started adding a Tuesday night Grand Ole Opry performance. So it's grown in its popularity and demand over the years. But anyway, going back to the some of the things like on the tour, the Ryman Auditorium, like I said, it's just one of those historic places you've got to see while you're in Nashville. And another place stop that we go down is the Parthenon, which Kerrie mentioned, and it's exact replica of the Parthenon in Greece in a modern form because it's 100% standing, and it was built as part of the centennial and then bicentennial celebration in Nashville. Over 100 some years ago in the late 1800s, and it was built as part of the World's Fair. The citizens wanted it to stay. It wasn't built as a permanent exhibit, so they started raising money. So by the time you get to the 1920s, they now start construction on the permanent Parthenon, which is actually one of the city museums now. And it is a sight to behold, to see this structure, because if you've only seen the one in Greece, less than a third of it is still standing. It's all crumbled because of age. And anyway, to see the enormous size of the facility, because it was built to scale 100% as to what the one in Greece was. Anyway, it's a beautiful park where you can go through and enjoy not only the park and the history of Bicentennial or Centennial Park there, but also another stop that you'll go through is called Bicentennial Mall, which was for the 200th anniversary of Nashville, that was designed in front of the Capitol in Nashville, and it spans for about a mile, and it's just this beautiful architecture. And there's about a 30 or 40 yard long granite map of the state of Tennessee with all the river systems you can walk across. And anyway, there's just a lot of unique things that were incorporated into Bicentennial Mall that you also get to see on that sightseeing tour of Nashville on that Friday morning. Before you have some time on your own in downtown Nashville to have lunch. So,
all right, and I didn't include all those photos, but that's our trick, so that you can't see everything today. You have to actually go to Nashville yourself, right, and see all these major attractions. Then after we have lunch in the afternoon, we're going to go out and visit a plantation that was built in 1807, Belmead. It is a state museum today that tells all the stories, of course, of the American African slaves that lived there and worked the land. And it's just a beautiful preservation of Tennessee's history and architecture, and just sort of the legacy that sort of happened around these plantations. Any other facts about the Belmead?
It's just the Belmead plantation is one of the more famous still existing plantations in the Nashville area. It'll be a guided tour of the facility, as long as they would have their own winery where folks will be able to participate in a wine tour and tasting as well towards the end of the tour. So anyway, but it's a beautiful structure set in one of the more historic, older neighborhoods of Nashville. So
it's a beautiful property. I like the idea of having a wine tasting there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then this evening, a really fun night planned. We have dinner at Paula Dean's Southern Restaurant. And then, of course, we go to the renowned Grand Ole Opry for a show. There are 70 different stars who are members exclusively of the Grand Ole Opry. So we don't know exactly who's performing until a few days ahead of time. But it usually features about 20 different performers throughout the evening. So just going to be a fabulous night. I'm sure you've been to a show here, Mark.
Yeah, I've actually probably been to the Grand Ole Opry probably 25 to 30 times in my life.
Wow.
So it's a very unique experience just to be sitting there knowing it's still a live radio show that you are in the audience part of. So it's a phenomenal experience. Like I said, they will list a few of the entertainers, a couple of months beforehand, but they never put out the schedule 100% till a few days before the actual night of the performance. So, but you're always guaranteed pretty much to see. You typically you see somebody, the different acts and performers that come across there. Besides the host that hosts the Grand Ole Opry, you usually get about 10 to 15 minutes of. Or every 10 to 15 minutes, you have a different entertainer or group that comes across the stage to perform. So, yes, on average, over the course of about 2 hours, you're looking at, 8 to 10, maybe even 12 different groups or performers that you will see over the course of that 2 hours, along with all the commentary by the host and commentator of the Grand Ole Opry, who's there at his podium on the stage during the whole evening. So it's just a wonderful experience to take in if you never have done.
Yeah, it was. I forgot that once you mentioned that it's been the longest running radio broadcast in U.S. history, and the Grand Ole Opry itself. I mean, it's been running since 1925, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so many stars, come here and perform and start out here, and sort of, like over the years, they've just had some really unique performers come. It's like an honor for them to play here.
And you never know who will be there, and that's part of the uniqueness. There may be somebody that is a member that wants to perform one evening that comes in town off a tour, and you'll have an extra somebody that wasn't even scheduled initially that ends up being there. So you never know what you'll get, but you'll always get a good group and a large group of performers and entertainers coming across that Grand Ole Opry stage.
Awesome. All right. And then just moving on, this is day 7. So we're going through our tour pretty quick here. So we have a nice free morning. And Mark mentioned earlier the Opry Mills. There's a large shopping mall, which is adjacent to where we're staying. So you have free time to enjoy the hotel, do some shopping, which will be nice. And then in the afternoon, we're doing a tour of the RCA studio. And this is where Elvis recorded more than 200 of his songs. I don't know if you want to add anything else about the studio.
It's just, again, not only Elvis, but, Roy Acuff, Hank Snow, if those names ring bells with any folks of the entertainers who got their start, of their first songs and performances that they had in Studio B. They're on Music Row and now off of downtown Nashville. There is just Sun Studio in Memphis is wonderful. Studio B in Nashville is basically compounding the amount of entertainers and the amount of records that came out of that studio 10 to 20 times over. It's almost eerie. And again, Elvis too, you learn about how he, some of the lighting when he would be in there recording, he had different colored lights depending on the mood of the song that he wanted it to fit. And they would change the colors of the lights. And anyway, just knowing that there have been hundreds, of entertainers, including Elvis and Johnny Cash and a bunch of these people who have performed there. And it was those first recordings in Studio B that got them to the success and the level of the word I'm looking for here, the level that they got to in society of being some of the top entertainers in the world at the time. So it's just a very almost emotional experience to be able to stand in Studio B during that tour. So.
Okay. And then in the afternoon, we're going to visit the Extraordinary Country Music Hall of Fame. The building looks like it is built to represent a piano. Limestone glass building, absolutely beautiful building. And of course, just wandering around the hall and seeing all the awards in the Country Music Hall of Fame, I think is going to be a really fun time.
Excuse me, Kerrie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Since your screen stopped sharing, my screen's been stuck on slide 12.
Oh, no. Okay. Thank you for speaking up. Mark, are you seeing the Country Music Hall of Fame?
I am not.
Oh, okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's fix this. We want everyone to. Okay, let's start again.
And there's somebody on the phone whose conversation keeps echoing. Maybe he or she can mute their phone.
Okay. Got everyone muted except myself and Mark. Okay, so let's, I'm going to share my screen again.
That's way better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry about that. Hopefully that will, on the recording, the slides will be correct. I'll have to double check that, but thank you for speaking up. So you missed a couple pictures, but we'll try to catch you up. So this is the Country Music Hall of Fame. Striking building, limestone glass building. We're going to spend some time wandering around the museum. Anything you want to add there, Mark?
No, I mean, you've got all kinds of stuff, and they change out some of the exhibits, once or twice a year because they have massive industrial size warehouses of all the items that have been donated to them over the years from all these country music entertainers, and even some of the rock groups and gospel groups or Christian groups over the years. That's why they try to rotate some of the exhibits around. But something that you have like at the Country Music Hall of Fame that you do not have in Memphis either is Elvis Presley's Cadillac is actually in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Elvis did such a variety of music. A lot of people don't remember, but he did everything from rock and roll to blues to rockabilly to gospel to country. He had a wide variety of music that he performed and played and sang. And but anyway, like I said, you have a lot of unique, not only instruments, but outfits, records, musicians, stories, the original paper where a lot of hit songs were written, as just thoughts before they ever even went into the studio. The archives that they have in there that you can see how all that stuff's categorized with the reel-to-reel tapes where all these songs, a bunch of songs and music was recorded. So, but with his picture, since it's up here, and I wasn't sure how many pictures you had, Kerrie, or I would have had said something earlier after I'd breezed through this the other day. But yes, as you can see, the windows were designed to look like a keyboard when they built this sort of construction on this new Country Music Hall of Fame, which didn't open up until 1997. The other little facility that they had was about the size of a two-story house over near Music Row that had been there since the 1960s. So this was a massive upgrade for this. But also, as you're looking at that, for those of you online, if you look at the right, the way the top of the building looks like it curves up, that was designed to resemble the fin of a 1957 Cadillac. Okay. Because that was the choice of cars for many, many entertainers for many years. So that's what that is, sweeps up to look like the fin of a 57 Cadillac. And the over on the left-hand side, the little round radio antenna you see and dome there, that was basically, of course, that's an exhibit inside the museum, but that was an antenna that was designed to replicate the original WSM 650, which is the radio station that the Grand Ole Opry broadcasts off of, the original radio tower on top of that dome there. So that's what that was also, again, just unique architecture, unique things to be able to see and take pictures of when you're there in Nashville.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. That is so interesting about the design with the fin of the car. That's awesome. All right, and then in the evening, we are attending the Ray Stevens dinner show. This is going to be a really fun night. It's a legendary. I mean, Ray Stevens is a legendary Nashville performer. He has won multiple Grammys. He is in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and it's a live music show that features, great music, hilarious comedy, and there's table seating just right on the main floor. So you're just sort of having this wonderful show just right up close to the stage. And yeah, have you been there? Have you had dinner and gone to the show?
I have, yes. And you never know what Ray Stevens is going to say because he's a very ad-lib comedian when he's on stage, especially from, his notoriety with all his what was originally just, cassettes back in the late 70s and early 80s to, what turned into videos by the time you got to the mid 80s and into the early 90s before he started performing in, theaters. And, this venue, this cabaret theater where you're going to, this is also only about 4 years old. I think we incorporated this in on one of the two Memphis Nashville tours for Wells Gray in 2019.
Okay.
And this is the only dinner theater. I don't think it was on both of them, but anyway, it's a phenomenal experience, and before we get to the end, I want to say, on average, Wells Gray, all the years I've been working with him for probably close to 20 years now. You guys do, a lot of people go to Memphis. They only spend maybe a night or two in Memphis. And I'm talking normal tour groups in general, and maybe 2 or 3 nights at most in Nashville. So for you guys to be getting, Wells Gray likes to give you guys the best of both worlds when you guys, sign up on these tours. So that's why you're getting a full 3 nights in Memphis and also a full 4 nights in Nashville, so that you can see as many of the highlights and some of the bigger name entertainment that you possibly can when you're on these trips, because it may be the only time you ever go. So see as much as you can while you do. So like I said, there's a lot loaded into these tours, this Memphis Nashville tour, in terms of the highlights and just the exclusivity of the hotels. You're staying at basically the 2 of the best hotels in Nashville and Memphis. So
I think what's nice too, because it is, nature, it's a busy tour, but staying in the same property for 3 nights and then 4 nights, you have a bit of downtime to actually enjoy a bit of the hotel experience as well, and not be moving around day to day, but having that extended stay and having those extra days to just take in all of this fascinating music. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We had a lady from our company who went on the tour in 2019, and she just absolutely loved it. She's like, I want to go back. It was just such a good time. So we're not done yet. We have one more day. This is our last day, day 8, Sunday, October 2nd. We have another leisure morning, which is nice, in the hotel. Then we go for a barbecue lunch at an iconic Wild Horse Saloon. And then we have the opportunity to go to a candy making class. And this is fun because it's a famous Nashville candy created in 1912. They're still making and selling it. It's sort of a nut chocolate, milk chocolate, called the Goo Goo Cluster. I've not tried it. It looks delicious. It kind of looks like a Reese's Pieces. I don't know if you have those there in the States, Mark, but you've eaten these, I'm sure.
Oh yes, yeah, and yes, originally, and they actually have like 3 variations of it now. Back in the 90s, they got away from just the original version, which was like a caramel and a marshmallow and nuts and chocolate. To there's a peanut butter, and I'm trying to remember what the other one is though. But there's 3 variations of the Goo Goo, and anyway, I'm going to back up just a little bit. The Wild Horse Saloon, which I don't know how much you folks, have public broadcasting or PBS up there in Canada, but back in the late 80s, this is where line dancing basically got its start, was at this Wild Horse Saloon. It was aired live on PBS on Saturday nights, live from the Wild Horse Saloon, and they filmed all these people out on this dance floor, and that was when line dancing took off and got its popularity and became a name into the world of dancing, so to speak, was from Wild Horse Saloon here. While you are there, not only will you be having a lunch, but they do line dancing lessons about every 45 minutes to hour, where people can come out there and you can do your own line dancing. They're on the dance floor, and it's led and hosted by one of the employees. They teach you the moves if you've never done it, and to a certain dance, and you can line dance, for a couple times while you're there if you want. So anyway, that's kind of the notoriety behind the Wild Horse Saloon, as well as being one of the largest bars and saloons in downtown Nashville, because the place on a concert night, when they have concerts in there, they can hold almost 3,000 people in this venue. So it is a very large 3-story venue, but you will be down on the floor of the second level, where you can see the dance floor, and where it's easy for you folks to get down there and do line dancing, and if you so choose while you're there, or watch part of your group go down there and line dance. So the Goo Goo, that going back to the Goo Goo, yeah, the store that's downtown now, it's not the factory, but they have this thing that groups can do to where you can go in and make your own custom Goo Goo candy. And it's about a half pound, depending on the toppings that you put in it. It ended up being about a half pound to a 1 pound Goo Goo that is custom made by you. They take you through the process of how you can, where you put, they've got the chocolate pre-molded. You can load that thing up. It's in a it's in a pan. They seal the thing off and do what's called a flash freezing process, where short 10 minutes after your little class is done, everybody gets to take their own custom-made Goo Goo home with them or out of the store with them from there. Very fun experience. You also get to sample the different Goo Goos, as well as some of the drinks, the little drinks that they serve inside the Goo Goo store. So as well as time to shop and buy other Goo Goos if you want while you're in there. So it's a very fun, hands-on experience. And I also believe you get to keep your, they give everybody an apron while you're making your thing, and you get to keep the apron as a souvenir as well. So a very fun, hands-on experience. That is also that started in 2019, I believe, in the fall. I do not believe Wells Gray has done that experience before. So this is also another new experience for Wells Gray.
I'm so glad you backed up, because I didn't realize how large the Wild Horse Saloon was and all the line dancing that takes place. So on this last day, you're going to learn all about music and country music, and then you're going to learn how to line dance, and then you're going to learn how to make chocolate. So you're going to come home a dancer and a chef. So, I mean, that's really neat. All right. And then we have one more stop. In the afternoon, we go to the Johnny Cash Museum. Lots of history here. And then we have a really nice dinner at the Santa Fe Grill. It's a private dinner, and we will have a performance by a Nashville singer or songwriter that will be coming and performing for our group. So finishing off the last day, a lot of fun. Our bellies will be full and our feet will be tapping. Our souls will be singing, I think, by the end of it.
The unique thing about the songwriter, the private songwriter, that is a Wells Gray exclusive too. It will only be the Wells Gray group in there for that. And the thing is, you get to hear the stories behind some of the several popular songs that you will have heard on the radio, but you want to hear the entertainer that sings them. You don't know the history or the story behind the actual song, which is where these songwriters come into play. They will sing you those songs and tell you about the music or how it came into existence, or how it transformed from what it was originally this. Then, as we edited it and went through it and, incorporated new words into it, it got to this point that, it ended up reminding somebody of their grandmother or a family member that got incorporated to the song. Or anyway, it's a very phenomenal experience to be able to sit there with one of those songwriters and go through the processes, or hear and see the processes that they go through on some of the popular songs that you have probably seen or heard, over the course of the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. I love just this photo too. This is obviously in the Johnny Cash Museum, but it's just all the album covers, it looks like, maybe displayed on the wall.
Yeah. In his museum there, yes. Yeah, it's a first-class museum. And again, I don't actually know, if I can't remember without looking back on the 2019 Wells Gray. I don't think we included the Johnny Cash Museum, because I don't think it opened up until it was either late 2018 or early 2019. So, and it's actually right next to the Goo Goo Candy Storm Factory making class, or candy making class. So that's why that was included, because it's just right there to give you folks one other unique museum and musical journey while you're there in Nashville.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's neat that we have, it feels like the world sort of stopped for a couple of years, but in that couple of years, some new attractions have opened up, and there's some really new and unique experiences that we're going to be offering. So that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the next morning we're just basically traveling home. So this is day number 9 on the Monday, and we will be flying with WestJet from Nashville right back into Kelowna and then transferring you home to your home cities. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for a minute. And I just want to say thank you so much to Mark. You are such a wealth of knowledge and information and really brought the whole tour to life. I've never been to Nashville or Memphis. I love Johnny Cash. I love Elvis. Those are the two big ones, of course, that stand out for me, but love to come down there and hear some of the blues and jazz, rock and roll. There's just so much music. I think, and you're going to be eating great food and just learning so much. So I think it's just going to be a wonderful tour. I'm just so excited for it. Yeah. Now, if there's anyone that has any questions, you can, if you want to unmute yourself and ask, go ahead. If not, you can put it in the chat box. If it's something comes up in the next couple of days, it is a holiday this weekend on the Monday, so our office is closed, but you can email myself or reach out to any one of the local offices. And if it's a question for Mark, I can forward it on to him. He's definitely got all the inside scoop on all these fabulous attractions that we're visiting. So any questions out there for anybody? Doesn't seem like it. All right, well, thank you so much to Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Send me any questions anybody may have.
Yeah, and we'll see you in a couple months in Memphis.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. And we've recorded this afternoon, so we'll make sure we email that out to everyone as well. All right. So thank you on behalf of Love with Gray Tours, and thank you from Mark for Carry On Travel and Tours. And stay cool down there. I hope it cools down for you and keeps raining.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.